the education we have today and the education system. So in this part of the episode, we have three panelists. One is the first one, Kausar Saeed ji, who is coming from Telangana. She represents the Telangana Parents Association. We have Bhavin Shah, who is the CEO of Education World Magazine, and along with Education World Magazine, the Parents World Magazine. And therefore, I see Bhavin is going to make an immense contribution in this discussion in terms of identifying and looking at the larger picture as to what is happening and what are the changes and trends and challenges and opportunities we are getting. We also have Mr. Shantanu Gupta with us, who is an author, a political commentator, is very frequently he's on most of the news channels, and he is from Delhi. So we have people from Delhi, Bangalore, and Hyderabad today on this discussion. And for all our audience and listeners and to the speakers, let's have a free-flowing conversation in terms of understanding, identifying the challenges and opportunities. Briefly, the core objective is we can talk in general, the challenges and opportunities of parents with regard to education and schooling system, but also specifically in the context of pandemic. So when this coronavirus came in and things had to shut down, in this process of lockdown, schools are closed. Schools are not operational, though we are saying in the context of pandemic, building is closed, so when the school is closed, which means the education in many cases, we are trying to make sure that education continues to flow and there is no learning deficit because of the building being locked down. Anyways, so let's start this conversation. And in this conversation, sabse pehle, I would love to know from Kausar ji. And before we come to the main part of the conversation, so making it little light, actually what I wish to know from all of you, quickly if you can talk briefly, think about your childhood days. And when you were going to school, what were the things that you liked the most or hated the most? And I would love to start with Kausar ji. You are mute. You are muted. You are muted. Huh?
Kausar, you're muted.
Okay. Admin team will do that. Bhavin, why not you start?
Yeah. So one thing which I loved was obviously looking out of classroom and seeing whomsoever is either passing by or playing. So that's one. And number two, which I never liked was this long boring history lectures. So to me, science subjects always excited me. So I was looking at only the science periods which used to be coming. But most of the time I was just looking at out of the classroom.
Good. Yeah, so can I say that you were a very distracted kid right from the childhood?
But whatever, Amit,
or focus in multiple direction.
So whatever you say, distracted, not distracted, that's my teachers have to analyze. But here I am with you, and whatever I have done so far, I feel I've done reasonable. So probably looking out of classroom has helped me in some or the other way.
Completely agree. And this is why I would also say not just distracted, but maybe focus in multiple direction at the same time. Which is a skill of 21st century.
Constructively distracted.
Wonderful. Kausar ji, can we hear from you now?
Yes. Hello, everyone. I'm Kausar. I've been speaking to parents and I would be representing the parents' voice today, which will come later. But with my experience of school, I was homeschooled. So I would always love to see my mother being in that role of a teacher with me. So learning experience was something that I really liked. One. And what I did not like was the assessment part. I never liked assessments.
So when you were homeschooled, and I guess your mother was kind of took the charge.
Yes.
What kind of assessment, how she used to assess whether you have learned things?
Assessment was external. Year end, we used to go to, we lived in an area where there was no formal school. in a region where there was no formal school with an Indian curriculum. So that is where my mother, being an educator herself, she took to teaching all of us. So we had an environment in the house where we had a strict timings, where we would sit and we had a schedule, we had a timetable where we would sit and we would study. And towards the end of the year, it was like an open school system where an examination body would come and conduct the examinations.
Where exactly was this?
This was a region in Saudi Arabia.
Okay. So it was, let's say I can say it was more like an open book, and therefore you can take year-end exams.
No, the assessment was a proper assessment where I would be given a question paper which we have to decode. So somewhere there we did not like it, because when we were taught in the house by our mother, we did not have so many assessments. We did not have unit tests and all that, which I later got to know, which were conducted. So, suddenly towards the end of the year, you have to sit for 2 hours on a table and desk, and you have to decode the question paper. And then you were told that the entire year learning is being judged on that paper. So that was something that didn't fit well with me.
Wonderful. Coming to Shantanu ji. Shantanu ji, how was your childhood, and what you liked in school days or what you didn't like?
So I think till 4th class, if I can remember, I was like marks is the criteria for your performance, which for a lot of parents is. I was a very average student. All of a sudden in 5th, I was a KV student, Kendriya Vidyalaya student. I'm bottom is Rishikesh. So all of a sudden, class 5th, they introduced Sanskrit. And for some reason, my elder sister, who is 4 years elder to me, she taught me Sanskrit very well. Like, because Sanskrit is very almost equal to mathematics, right? Because it's very formula based, very grammar based, right? So I all of a sudden scored like 95, 19 Sanskrit, and all of a sudden from rich student, I became number 1 in the class. And number 1 in the class is like in the essay, you are called to the stage and all. I was just watching this from 4 years that, okay, there are some kids who go to stage and all. So that recognition helped. And from 5th class onward, I became a very studious kid, like 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and all of a sudden, when you have a like prestige, you have like something to secure. Like you can't now you have to be at least in top 5.
You can't let it go. Yeah.
You can't go back. You can't let it go. So these laurels kind of restrict you. So I became a decently studious student. I used to play badminton. I think unfortunately I got specs like very early in my life, right? That restricted a lot of my sports. Like if early in life, in that age, you don't know like how to manage yourself, then the sports itself. So I think, but yeah, I chose this game, badminton. I played a decent badminton, couple of levels, district, state, and all of that. And then 10th, again, I became in the board exam, 10th board exam, CBSC, big thing. I became number 1 in my KV, whichever KV I was in Rishikesh. And then I moved to a UP board school. So in fact, very interestingly, during my school time, and when I was reading this NEET and JEE fight, like that they want to make it a 0 year, right? In fact, that happened with me, about to happen. The Uttarakhand movement was happening, right? The Uttarakhand movement, so I was part of UP. My all certificate says UP. So though I'm born and bottom in Rishikesh, which is in Uttarakhand now, my certificates are in UP because I did my 12th in 96, 97. Uttarakhand formed in 2000. So I was part of all those hartals. So my school was closed for almost 7-8 months. And 7-8 months is like almost technically no year, right? And it was it a 0 year. But somehow, a lot of people, a lot of parents rallied, and we did not go to the school for 4-5 months. But again, we did the exam and we cleared, right? And then I did my engineering, and typical middle class people, right? They do engineering or medical. I did my engineering. Got a job in software industry in Hyderabad. I think it was a very different life for me, right? When I entered a mall, and in year 2000, going to a lifestyle was like considered a huge mall. It was a very different ball game for someone who studied in Rishikesh and then Pantnagar and then went to Hyderabad. Hyderabad is a big town even then, right? And then life took on. So I think memories are of like studying late night, doing good in exams, and living up to your laurels, and stealing some time to play badminton. Yeah, I think those are the memories I have of. And yeah, one thing that I used to hate, and I still remember, I was like every kid, I was an avid cricket follower, right? And those days, if you remember, the cable was not in everybody's house, right?
Right.
And a lot of yes, ESPN Star Sports, where a lot of foreign series used to come. Because I didn't have cable connection, because of maintaining my daughters, my daughters also was very secure that don't get cable in house, otherwise children not study. So I used to almost go out and listen, because a lot of people play, and I was used to live in a government colony, so houses are next to next. So just by like peeping into somebody's house, you can almost listen to the commentary that's coming on their TV, right? So not having cable in my house and not able to follow, and newspaper, internet was nothing was there, right? So just to find out what is the score, there was no means, right? Sometimes radio was tuning, not tuning. So not having cable at house and not able to follow the cricket commentary was one of my quite a pain for me at those days. I used to get irritated out of that. Yeah.
Right. In fact, it's a good reminder.
Yeah.
So we had this pretty much kind of set trend those days. Exam आने से like 3 महीने पहले TVs will be locked.
और केबल
कोई टीवी भी नहीं चलेगा, केबल अगर कनेक्शन है तो वो भी कट जाएगा. Like cable connection was new, at least while I was growing up. Cable connection was a new phenomenon. It was slowly coming up. So not everyone had it. And even they had cable connection and a TV at home, they will switch it off, cut it down, pack and lock and pack and keep it away for another 3 months until the summer break comes. So this used to be a trend. Yeah. Anyways, now I will go in the reverse order. And before we come to the real subject, my next question will be, let me start with Shantanu and then we go to the order. What does parenting mean to you? So when you say it's a parenting, what kind of feeling you get? What does it mean? What kind of sense of responsibility it gives you? What happens to be your fear? If you could talk a little bit about that.
Right. No, see, definition wise, I don't know what parenting is, but again, I think...
and I have nothing to do with this.
So I think I got married a little early. Like if I was 25, I call it early. And my wife was 24. And we got our kid quite late, right? I'm 40 now, my 41 now, my kid is 7. So yeah, when I was 34, so almost 8-9 years of marriage, because I was outside India. We were not too comfortable having a kid when I was out. I was in Europe, working in Europe for 4-5 years. So by 34, you kind of know your strengths, your weaknesses. So you're settled with yourself, right? Like what you are, right?
Yeah.
That was good, right? Yeah. You don't have like extra ambitions, or you're not even cursing yourself then, right? So you're settled more or less with yourself, right? Which is not the case. At least it was not the case with me when I was 25, 28, right? So that was a good thing. And when the kid came, and we were nuclear, like me, my wife, and my son Abhiram, whom I'm homeschooling now. We were in different towns, living alone. Some from my parents in there. But again, so that first of all was a logistical challenge, right? And we as independent husband and wife was not like waking up at night and then morning you have to do the job. You didn't last night. You get irritated in the process that you can't sleep, and then slowly love that you have your son, your kid, that right? And then I think he decided. I think even me and my wife was wondering when did we decide when we will homeschool it. I think our idea was I was not too happy with this preschools, these Euro kids types, right? Nothing against them. I think they're doing what they're doing. But because I used to see, whenever I used to take milk in the morning, and morning 7 o'clock, I used to see these small kids with bag or no bag, yawning, standing with their parents outside for the bus or taken away. I never liked this as a pleasant sight, right? I'm not saying that because I'm an early riser, I'm not recommending that people should sleep late, but for some reason that was not a pleasant sight for me. I did not see those kids very happy normally. That's my perception. So I said, I will send to this at least this preschooling, right? And because I lived in Europe, Europe studies start from class 1. Outside India, preschooling is a very like a private concept, right? All government infrastructure is made from starting from class 1. So I think that was the idea. We'll not send to preschool, and even if we send to a preschool, we'll find some Waldorf or some new kind of thing. And then it so happened that he started going to somebody's house for drawing, some jungle walks with me. And then we realized that he's learning in a pace which even we can't give him, let alone the school, right? Because I think we have to agree, but school is a very limited infrastructure. It has 5-6 teachers, which are paid a certain salary. Their capability is equivalent to that particular salary, which is not best of the best, right? All the IT engineer, the best of the talents are not teaching in school. They have just mastered to communicate a chapter or communicate a book, right? That's the limited expertise, right? At least in schools. In colleges, in maybe it might be a different expertise. So it's a very limited expertise. Only thing is it follows a regime. And with that regime, you end up learning a set of subjects, right? But again, when we realize that just being at home and being with other friends, going to a lot of events, traveling with me, I started taking with me a lot of travel. I thought, yeah. So he was learning along with me. We were learning a lot of new things. In fact, a little digression. I started something called a Ramayana school from last 1 year. And I'm teaching Ramayana in a very new age fashion through 4Cs, through communication, through collaboration. And it came out because I was discovering how to teach Ramayana to Abhiram. And now it's become a module. I'm professionally doing it with fees now. And I've done with thousands of parents in almost 15 countries in Corona time, right? Charging them fees. So, and it came because I was teaching Abhiram and made a module out of it. So I have evolved, me and my wife has evolved as a person while doing parenting. And that's like but he's learning what he's learning, right? One last thing with this, I'll stop. There was a toy, and we never bought any big toy for him because any birthday, a lot of toys came, and I think those are enough, right? So one toy came from, I think, outside India. It was a very fancy toy. You have to mix and match some sounds and some pictures. It was a decently complicated toy. One day, he was like 3.5 and 4. He was like doing it, and the voice was coming. You are correct. Congratulations. You are correct. That sound was coming. We just wondering, like, so my wife, are you helping him? And she realized that I'm also away from the toy. He was doing himself, right? And then we realized if I were to teach that toy to him, I could not done it. It was quite a complicated toy, even for me to perform, let alone to teach. And he somehow figured out. He did not figure out how to do it. He somehow figured out the pattern. He did not master because he can't even read the English that's written there. So he's identified the pattern that if you, and there was like 50-60 combination. He somehow mastered those 50-60 combination. He must have done some lot of hit and trial, which we have not observed. And he is able to hit that congratulations sound. He mastered that if I press ye dono dabane se congratulations sound aata hai, right? That he mastered. I doubt I could have taught him this. And then we realized that every kid, I'm not saying my kid is a Einstein. They have every kid, every human being has a natural intelligence, which in a very disciplined environment, which normally schools are, it may in fact cut that natural learning. And that's what I think that day we decided, I think we are fine. I think we as a family are learning a lot. And yeah, and that's became the definition of parenting for us. That also with 1.5, not a school going. I don't know, ours starting at 1, because I keep hearing the school going ages become 2.5. They're 2 toddlers going to some kind of, so yeah, I don't know. But again, I think for us as a family, growing as a family, learning from each other, that has become parenting. Yeah, that's all. Sorry, the long answer to a short.
No, that's very nice to hear from you, and this is what even I am learning.
Amit, you told me, right? Amit, you told me I'm a TV panelist, right? So in TV, just to make a half a minute intervention, we struggle, right? And so when you get a captive audience, like it's a luxury. So
Yes. And we are not TRP driven, so you are free to talk whatever you think comes to your mind. No, this is wonderful to know that this is parenting is not actually, and when we are thinking in terms of parents' aspiration, it's not only learning exercise for the kid. It's for everyone. Everyone is learning together. And if this can happen, really, it's a wonderful thing. I think no school can provide you like the group learning for the entire family learning together with the same instruments, maybe. So let me come to Kausar Said ji. So same question stays for you as well. What does parenting mean to you?
For me, parenting was all about my child. Everything I feel that children have parents in their life, so that parents facilitate fill the gap for what they want to achieve. Parenting, the way it is being taken now, is about extension of what they want. parents usually get children to do what they want or what they couldn't do. And that is where was very different in my parenting. In my parenting, it was all about my child, and I wanted him to be conscious about who he is, what is, he's born with certain intelligence, certain skill set, and where is that he needs that help from us, we are there for him. So we were there as helpers or facilitators for him to make a sense of the world. So it was driven by the child for us.
Wonderful. So for you, it's all about the child. And you mentioned something, I think it's remarkable, that at times intentionally or unintentionally, what happens is it's our either fulfilled or unfulfilled aspiration that we actually want to get that done through our kids.
Yeah.
So जो हम नहीं कर पाए, शायद हम अपने बच्चों से expect करने लगते हैं.
Yes. Yeah, हम नहीं कर पाए because we did not get certain support is what we build up on our in our minds, and we think that if we provide that support to them, they'll be able to do it. But maybe that child is not born to fill that block. He's born to fill some other block, and he knows it well. You know, if you will not teach your children to read their own self, then how will they be able to read the world tomorrow? That is the way you can inculcate the most important skill, that is the problem solving skill, where he will be into that scenario and he'll figure out how he needs to solve that problem, and that's the way it will be for him. I think that, you know, even when we talk about schools or learning, everything now is available on Google. Knowledge is just there. The right way or the right approach to reach to that knowledge is that my child should learn. And what is the purpose of learning if it will not help him tomorrow? I always say this: algebra never helped me solve the problems of my life. It's the way I used my knowledge that has helped me actually come here. So that's exactly what I wanted in my parenting, that my child should make a sense of the world himself, and I'll be the facilitator. I'm there to help him. He's not there to fulfill my wishes or to fill the gap for me. And yes, we need, you know, whenever we feel that there are certain things, discipline, and these certain things which we feel as a parent we should teach our children, that can be taught by role modeling it for them. Create an environment, role model it for them, and they'll certainly learn it from you. If they see you touching the feet of elders in the house, if they see you giving that respect to elders, they themselves will do that.
Right. But here comes one question. At times, and this happens by instinct, it's not also that you are doing with the conscious mind, but since you feel protective for the kid, all of a sudden you started saying, do this, don't do this, control him, monitor him. So you're not completely allowing this individual to grow up freely. So how has been that experience for you?
We have never actually done that, because when you give that child their space to think and do their things themselves, children do have an instinct of protecting themselves. If you actually see babies when they are growing, they have an instinct. They have a good instinct of being supportive of themselves. So they do take care of themselves. We think that way, that they cannot, and we go and, you know, support them even before they fall down. But allow them to fall down. Let them fall down right in front of you, and then help them get up instead of they falling down when you are not there tomorrow.
Wonderful. I think I'm getting quite a bit lessons here. So for me, the key lesson is have control over your own instinct and trust the kid's instinct to protect himself or herself. Wonderful. Yeah. Great. And finally, before I move to Bhavin, one more quick question. So while you were homeschooled because of the situation, right? How did you decide whether you are going to put your kid to school or homeschool? How was that choice?
That's an interesting question, Amit. I was homeschooled because my mother was a teacher. So when you're homeschooled, parent being educated is very important. Otherwise, it can be a little dangerous. It cannot be trial and error with the way you deal with children. Totally trial and error. You need a proper mentorship when you are being taught at home. Second, we were a group of 5 siblings. So we never had problem of an environment to be created, because all of us sat together and we would study, and we had very less of an age difference between each other, and that was an environment that was there. But when it came to my child, he was the only one child for me. So when he would be the only one who would be sitting and studying, my main concern or main objective of sending him to school was giving him a social circle. I wanted him to make friends. And obviously, I chose a school from that perspective, that will the school give him enough opportunity to explore or himself, and which is not too driven by grades, or which is not too driven by only academic goals. So for me, choosing a school for him was giving him an environment where he gets an opportunity for social development.
Which the kid was not getting in, let's say, society or the local.
He makes some friends, and he'll be able to, peer learning. And that's what we used to do when he would come back from school. The things that we would ask him would, how was your experience at school? We never asked him, what did you study? We would ask him that, what did you do at school from the perspective of that? How many friends did you talk to? What was that? Those were the stories. And we certainly looked at a school with lesser timing, so that we get to spend more time with our child, or we have major meals with him. So we can be little mindful in the way we choose the school, and yet get, so it's situational, it's circumstantial. He was the only child. We needed that social environment, and he did not have his cousins around. And that was the deciding factor for me to send him to a school.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. This is a good piece of learning for me. Now coming to Bhavin, and the advantage with Bhavin is that you don't just represent yourself, you represent thousands of parents in India, right? So you can also speak on behalf of them.
So you want me to answer also the parenting question, or you want me? Okay.
Yeah.
So for me as a parent, parenting has been education. It's been explorative. It's been more satisfying. It pushes me to be a more matured, a better decision maker, and obviously a more responsible person. So I think so. Any of the, on behalf of also a parent's world and the thousands and millions of parents that you interact, parenting as such is a subject which many of them just landed up on that subject, and then they start exploring, because maybe they wouldn't have planned the way many of these so-called educated crowd would do that. And that leads to various journeys which can carry forward in life, correct? So this area of parenting, and that's how I think so, it's deeply rooted with education, that while you are about to finish your so-called academic education, parenting is the only life education which brings or completes the entire circle, where you were in childhood, getting on where you were so-called adult or mature, but the way parenting brings maturity mentally and the emotional maturity that you come along, it's a very unique experience that every individual has its own experience. There is no one thumb rule saying, I did the parenting in that way and everyone has to follow the same. So I think so this journey of education it has to be cherished. There is, according to me, there are so many books and there are so many knowledges which are out there. But if you listen to your heart, because you have a life with you and you really deal with the most mature sense, this gives you the most satisfying experience.
Sorry, let me ask you also a very stupid question. Do you also feel there is a joke? Simple in our education system, and I like this school education related jokes. In India, by the time you decide what really you wish to do in life, by the time you realize it, you are already an engineer, right? So does it also happen by the time you actually think of the kind of parents you want to be, you realize when you have already become one, right?
That's what I meant. Yeah. That's what I meant many a time. See, you plan it, you do not plan it, but this is like journey, correct? You may have decided that you want to walk 100 kilometers, but probably you may see that there is a different path that you have gone through. You would have walked still 100 kilometer, but you may have gone through various experience while walking, correct? Which you may not have planned, right? And this is what in a way everyone's life means. When we talk about life, or when we talk about any experience, there is no charm if it is scripted in a way where you can decide everything. There is no charm in it, right? If you know that every day how, when, and what you are going to learn it, and if it's all going to be mechanized, then we are back with our slave days, where every day what you're going to do. I'm sure that's not the experience, or that's not what parenting is really about, right? So embrace it the way it comes. I think so. It's no need to be very judgmental about saying, oh, you accidentally became, or you didn't became, or in which way you became. Now you are, so now better start.
Now you are, accept it.
Accept it, justify it, and be proper on your job. That's
right. Now let's take the conversation to its next level, where why we are actually here is talking parenting, and parenting is a huge thing. But so the part of parenting which relates to education, and something for the kind of conversation Shantanu has already set the tone, which is about when it comes to choose the school for the kid. What kind of parameter, how do you choose? And here I'll once again go in the reverse order. So it's starting from Bhavin yourself. And how has been this schooling experience so far? How challenging has been? How smooth has been? How good experience it has been, or how terrible experience it has been? So starting from you, Bhavin.
Okay, Amit. So interesting question, and that's where education world and parents will both. The way it was incepted, and the very first property of ours, which is now worldwide known. We are the world's largest field survey when we do the India school ranking. It all started from where every parents who wanted to decide about schooling of their child, they wanted some parameters so that they can think how should the so-called admission process or decision making, or the right decision making for their child happen. But let me break it up into 2 or 3 frameworks, right? So someone who's like the 50s born, 70s born, and 90s born. So unlike typically, for example, like my parents or my father or mother, when they would have been deciding about me, I think so the only criteria was that it should be a good school which will be making me somewhere employable or job oriented. Okay. So that's the education definition, right? To secure some good field for his future. Moving down to say, for example, now when I think about the 70s and 80s, who would have already gone through their formal education, and now they have to decide, I think so that trend was no more in fancy saying someone is looking only at the job and employment. This is where we largely catered through the various parameters that every parent who was thinking, who was already gone through this, the rote learning method, they wanted to divorce that method, and they wanted much more objective criteria that they could have chosen. And that's where all the parameters, which includes not only the sports education, extracurricular, or infrastructure, became very, very prominent, right? And this is where I think so excess of information became very, very important for Indian parent, where they started seeking a lot of information. And Amit, you obviously know that in India, education has been demand and supply game. A good quality education had always trouble, and the same case was with a lot of education institute. The so-called best of the institute used to be very reserved while imparting any information, and that's where there was a lot of this demand about certain schools, which was going like to the roof. And for one admission application, you may get like, thousands of applications. And that was suddenly being called as the best school. And without knowing any of the parameters, parents used to just queue up saying, I just want an admission in that school. Without even knowing, saying whether your child is equipped or whether the vision of the school is what is accepted by you. And that has led it to much mix and match of lot of this education in the schooling factor, which over some period of time, either child would have thrown away or parent would have realized at much later age that this is not the justice that I've done. And this is, by the way, I'm talking of the most educated parents also. Okay. To certain extent, I would say the first generation learner were lucky because anyways they had no choice. They just went to a school which was accessible to them, and they just believed in the school that they would have either marketed or they would have not marketed, and they would have told saying, "Hey, look, this is what we are. You want, come in and experience it." Right? So I would definitely vote for much more informed decision that every parent should take. They should judge various parameters and criteria that school is offering, and based on that offering they should choose their school, not only by way of where 1,000 people are going and you have to join the queue, and that's where only quality education is there. And that's where I would like to make one very important point. The accessibility of information in news has to become one of the top-notch priority for each and every household. Typically, we give more importance to money, but we don't give importance to right and curated information at our homes. We still believe that we should hear what others are saying, and that's the very basic of parenting and education. That you should be introspecting and you should be looking at your child, what is best for them. Try to see what you can give the platform, and you can gel with that platform. See, I may aspire to be an astronaut and I would want my kid to be an astronaut, but it's not necessary that you are going to map the astronaut criteria to the kindergarten level and try to build the dream right from the kindergarten, correct? So it's very, very important that be realistic, grow as the child is growing, let the childhood be there first at a primary objective, and then get into the subject matter, which anyways, it's not limited to only the grades that you are getting educated. Education is lifelong, and give equal platform while you choose a particular school. You have to be parameter oriented rather than just blindfoldly going with the end objective.
Wonderful, wonderful. Yeah, I quite a bit understand what you're saying. And there is at times you follow the trend and you kind of look what others are doing, and this is what you start doing, and that is where the mismatch happens. And that also explains the reason of this very strong dissatisfaction among parents. But I would also take your attention towards the second part of my question. So my first part of the question was that how has been this experience of choosing this school? And this is the advantage with you, that you brought your experience plus also experience of thousands of parents that you are covering through Parents World magazine. But the second part of it, how happy or how sad this experience has been, let's say for you, of the schooling experience for your kid?
The most satisfying. In fact, obviously, while Education World and Parents World was making its journey, obviously, what personally I saw in last 1.5 decade, the scenario of education has also evolved from time to time. So obviously, for me, for my child, in fact, there has been a day-to-day exchange of information, knowledge that I have learned more from him, while every experience that he was going through, it gave a learning experience to me. And what I only believed is believe in your child's activity or their dreams. If you believe in them, you carve out a path for them. Okay, and probably I would have given a very less weightage to schools the way they function. In fact, there are so many areas in school that a school was offering. I think so every day was enjoyable, and whatever he wanted to pursue, every day that he wanted to share any experience, he was given that particular environment, which obviously not only shaped him and in a real holistic way, but it made him very, very matured to decide what is best for him. And that is what I think. So somewhere I buy Sugata Mitra's theory of soul, that is self-organized learning environment. So if you give that environment to the kid excels. And that has been the most satisfying experience for me, and learning experience for me. And it has worked out very well. So according to me, give an environment that the child would want to nurture and grow, they catch it up. And schools, according to me, across every school give it. It is us as the parents who become very specific. So if you don't become specific, then you're going to have a great experience. You know, if your demands are going to be larger than life and you are going to shove your expectation to them, then probably you are going to create a wrong precedence for your child and yourself.
Perfect. Now I come to Kausarji. Kausarji, the same question stays for you too, the two-part. Number one, how was this experience of choosing the kind of school you chose for your kids? And during this entire period of time, for last 5, 10, 12, 15 years, whatever, is how has been this experience so far? You are happy, you are sad, you are satisfied, unsatisfied, you have more complaints than the gratitude. How has been this experience?
Amit, for me, choosing a school was an environment for my child. So obviously the process involved my child. The first thing which I looked into was the physiological needs, as in what would be the timings for the school. Will it be difficult for him? Will he be able to complete his sleep? Will he be able to finish his major meals with me? So, you know, that was one of my important aspects. Certainly, I looked into the distance the school was from my home, so that it's easier. We don't have a lot of traveling time that we waste, and we will have more time with him. And then after that, we took our child to all the schools that we have been looking for him, which were, distance and the time was the first thing that we narrowed down, and we took him to all the schools. And he was a part of all the interactions that we had with the school teachers, principals, and the helpers which are there in the school. And I believe in the gut of the parent. I also believe in child's instinct. So I believed when he wanted to be a part of a school, and that was the deciding factor for us. Because you see, no school is going to be perfect in any which way. Each one of them is catering to some of the other needs. What we need to look at when we are choosing a school is it catering to the needs of your child and you? You know, what are your working hours? How is that you're going to look into? And I certainly like to build upon the point of responsibility which Bhavin have told. Yes, as a parent, responsibility is a key factor to everything that we do. Responsibility towards yourself, responsibility towards the child, and responsibility towards the world. I always feel that we talk about bigger terms like environmental conservation and things like that, but we forget that as a parent, you have a life. That you have a life with you, that is your child. And if you can give a better person to the world, what better contribution can you?
Right.
We can think of that as that kind of a responsibility. And I also would like to build upon the point which Bhavin have mentioned about the parent world parameters that you have given to schools. I am giving you a parent perspective here. Yes, those parameters have helped parents get educated about what they should look for in a school. And that can also be one of the deciding factor. I'm okay about, I'm very picky about safety, or if I am very picky about pedagogy. So that actually gave the direction to parents to think about the elements. So it has been a contributor to educating parents as well as schools of what, connecting factor between the schools and parents.
Perfect. And if you look back your decision that you took,
no, we always had a very good experience because it was a smooth transition. When you are very aware of the decision that you take, when you take total ownership of the decision when you take, and when you are not, compelling your decision on your child, the transition from home to school itself will be easy, because your child is also a part of the decision making. It was not you who made the decision and gave it to them. They were also a part of decision making. So that transition will be easy anyway. And because the crux of the entire decision making was different, it was not always about the academic outcome, but it was also about giving them that environment which was necessary. So we never had that kind of issue. Little small issues are always there, but that's where communication is important. And you need to talk it out and solve it.
Right, and that is where communication is important. That is where the parental engagement with school is important. So school also has to learn and improve, and they constantly require the feedback. Wonderful, thank you very much. I'll come to Shantanu now, and I will change the question for Shantanu because Shantanu has partially already answered this question. So Shantanu ji, now I'm coming to the most relevant and hot topic today, in wherein we are seeing a large number of parents who are gathering, who are dissatisfied with the kind of school they have chosen for whatever reason that I may know, may not know, I have sense or I don't have sense. And more so, the situation has become further grave during this pandemic. So there are groups of parents who have also run a campaign, something like no school, no fee. And therefore, this has created a huge problem for this entire education community, where schools are also finding their part of the problem. It's under financial crisis because the school had to be locked down, and if the parents are not paying the fee, they would have difficult time paying the teachers and staff. And if you are not already, India has lack of teaching as a human capital, lack of teacher as a resource. And if even those existing would have to leave or are dissatisfied, or they stop trusting the school and the management, or also not able to kind of face the parents, this brings much of acrimonious relationship between school and management and teacher and parents. This I see as the big challenge. So how do you see this as a problem, specifically during this pandemic context, and what kind of solution you would think of? Could you see some amicable solution for the problem?
Yeah. So I think, yeah, you're right. I don't send my son to school, but because I observe education policy quite clearly because of my TV debates, and generally, I think since I left my corporate job, I've been education domain somewhere or other through CCS or by working with UNICEF or Nandi Foundation, right? And when I school owners, a lot of parents in normal routine, I found three findings, right? And I think parents as a group, and which is not a very organized, very many parents association that I'm aware of, right? There are some, but it's like schools are quite a group, right? So much so that they access legal system also quite often, right? Maybe not budget private schools much, but the senior schools like we remember the case that came to RT, right? 25% reservation. They went to court. They lost the case though. But again, so now schools are saying the following things and parents are saying the following thing. I'll just tell you what I'm hearing. So schools are hearing that parents are not paying fees. Even the parents who can pay, they're not paying the fees. This is school's version. Who can pay, yes, because governments have this large directive, right? Governments have this large directive, don't charge EMI to banks, don't charge fees to school. And if you're charging, don't force them, right? I heard yesterday, very unfortunately, 2 people have committed suicide in Chandni Chowk. That's a totally different thing, nothing to the schools. But again, such cases, and it was a recovery case. Someone was ready to recover their 50 lakh rupees. So I'm saying
the similar thing is happening with school management too. 9 school Sanchalak, those who have committed suicide in Rajasthan.
Oh, I didn't know that. So such cases, though maybe stray or though maybe not very many number, but will set the example that and so this is from the school owner side, that parents are not paying. First, some of the parents cannot pay really because they are also, their economic income is hit. From the budget school, I think must be all the more, because the parents of budget schools are largely daily wage earners, or if not daily wage earners, in an organized, unorganized sector at the lower rung, right? So their chances of their jobs getting affected is far more high, right? So budget private schools parents must be really affected, right? Even medium to high school, very high schools, I think they are fine. Such parents have at least 2-3 years of savings. They can run their life for 2-3 years. But again, this mid schools also facing problem. and there are these mid schools. There's 2,000 to 5,000 kind of monthly fees. Their schools are complaining that those are the parents who can pay also. They're just taking the advantage of the mall, the advantage of the government. No, not paying. Though they say, I'm aware, owners are telling me, I can't say names. I'm aware sending the kids for this dance class, chess class. So they're using money, right? Only thing they're not paying fees. Now, what's happening on the school side? The school is also not running on charity. The schools are running on fees, right? They are not in turn able to pay their salaries, or they're cutting salaries is a norm across. A lot of people from high-flying startups to established companies, they are cutting salaries, right? But again, people are not able to say salary, and a lot of people are cutting salary. That's the phenomena that we know. Now, solutions. I know in such a pandemic, there is no ready solutions. One thing is, I think there should be a direct talk with the management and the parents body or the parents group. And every schools know that who are these 10-15 parents who comes to parent teacher meeting regularly, who are vocal. If they can take them under confidence and come on a number, okay? Till the time they're not coming to school, they're not using swimming pool or the physical. I know schools have various headers, right? Till the time they're not using the physical infrastructure, can the fees be at certain level, right? And that's not a favor school is doing. That's not a favor parent is doing. It's an arrangement between them that this is the fees we'll settle at till this time, till the physical school starts. So that's a fair communication should happen with schools and parents coming together, right? Because parents also at the end of the day, they are not all start homeschooling. They want school. They want school. They want their certificates. I'm saying I may having a different commentary in there, but that's a different case. They all want certificate. They want send their and also parents also to realize that schools are running. A lot of parents who are just using this as a reason. Okay, let's avoid till the time I can avoid. They should also come forward and say they have to find a solution. Let's say if you know this Waldorf school, I remember I think Parth kid go there, right?
Yes.
I think the parents manage the school. I Mana calling me sometime, can you suggest me a new land where we can shift the school? So why are you bothered? You are a parent, right? The owner should come. Because I know luckily the owners also. They say, no, there's a community. So a parent is also involved in something, finding a land, which is like quite a thing. A parent is calling me, can you find how to get the permission for a Waldorf kind of school, right? So can parents be, I think this is COVID is redefining a lot of engagements generally, and which will be there to stay. One of my very good friend who's a DU professor, a professor of economics in North Campus, he lives in Vaishali. He says that I'm able to manage my class far more better. Only the rule is that you have to put your videos on because the kids are smart, right? They put the Zoom and then they go away, right? Only rule is because now the LMS system I'm able to manage, I'm able to see who has done the homework. Otherwise, physically, he used to say, I used to check some, I used to forget some, right? And I'm saving on the 2 hours of going to North Campus from Vaishali. So, but I asked him, what about the physical interaction? He said, okay, I can go twice a week. Twice a week is enough of human interaction, right? I can go once or twice a week, and rest for 4-5 days can be on a live learning platform, right? So that's something. Anyway, engagements are changing. So now I think parents and teachers should this fair talk. That is one. Second thing, I think this is a very good time for what CCS was talking about, some kind of voucher or some kind of direct money to the parents. I think this is a very good time. This is a very good time to experiment that can you transfer this money, maybe as an interim, like when farmers were not doing well, Prime Minister Narendra Modi got a PM Kisan, right? Which is a decent move. And now, from last 6 years, after a lot of ho-halla about Aadhaar will take away your privacy, I hate the debate. With anyone who has a smartphone and he's talking about privacy, he's like a biggest hypocrite, right? Once you have this phone, everyone knows among 5 apps, they know where you're eating. So between Aadhaar and Jandhan account and Aadhaar, you have the amazing infrastructure how to transfer. So the infrastructure wise, we are sorted, right? So I think this is a very good time to do even experimenting direct cash transfers, maybe to schools, but I'm not a big votary of transfer to schools. But again, that point also comes because the schools is easy. Schools are registered, people, government knows them. But again, parents are like very many to verify who is a parent in which school. There is no definition of a parent, right? Like then you are at some income level. Maybe there will be a lot of classification. Government has to do a lot of hard work to find out which kind of parent they want. But this is a very good opportunity to do a large scale cash transfers, because schools as an entity is facing a huge problem. Schools as an entity, and I think now even governments and in NEP we have seen is stop seeing private school as a competition, right? Which we have, it was not it should not be government schools versus private schools. It's a schooling infrastructure which both the parties should abet in, right? So I think these two solution comes to mind, that parents and schools having a very candid conversation and settling fees at some particular level. And second thing, parents should also pay to the school fairly, because it's not like 1 day, 2 day thing, right? It's here to stay, and their kids have to use the school somehow, right? If they're using any infrastructure to the school, even an online class, even a WhatsApp class, even assignments, even a degree, even a certificate, right? For a certificate also you pay. Even if you think at the end of the year you want a certificate, and in India currently, and that's the problem for homeschoolers, parent government has thought something. You can't write a CBSE exam without being school. I find this law very stupid. That why CBSE, which is exam board, needs a school. It should be like a GMAT or GRE, that I should do independent write the exam and get a certificate from CBSE, right? So even if you want a CBSE exam, and currently the route is through school, you should be ready to pay. So parents should also feel, and for government, this is a golden opportunity to try something like cash transfer to schools, to parents. I know what infrastructure they figure out. So these are solutions that come to my mind.
Thank you very much. Yes, so something like a DBT idea, and specifically during this pandemic, can be tried out. As you mentioned, the Jan Dhan, Aadhaar, and mobile, that has provided infrastructure. And today, this has become mandatory that all kids have to have Aadhaar number to get enrollment into a school. Now I come to Kausarji, who represents the Telangana Parents Association. How do you see, why do you think that parents are so annoyed, so protesting? At the same time, to the extent that, I'm sorry, but this is my personal view, that many of these parents association, first they went to High Court, and then they together also went to the Supreme Court. And when I read their demand, they had three major demands. One was certainly no fee. So they don't have to pay fee for at least 3-6 months of lockdown period. Second part was that stop online education. And to me looked weird that any parent who is concerned about the education of the kid would possibly happily welcome that, okay, schools are closed down. We are lucky enough, we are fortunate that we have the technology available, infrastructure available. Think about 100 years ago when there was Spanish flu. Everything at that point of time also had to lock down, including school and educational activities. And that would cause the learning deficit. So here, I think, while there was a solution available and we should be happy, they even said, no, we don't want online education. So what does this phenomena represent? So please enlighten us in terms of the problem, in terms of the solution, and of your own work as to how can we deal with this situation.
Amit, yeah, this is a very difficult time for education, I would say, because for an obvious reason, all of us were unprepared. So we all have been talking about the plight of the schools where parents are not paying the fees majorly, and they are going through a financial crisis. But you need to look at the other side of the story also.
100%.
Not just that the organization or one school as a business have been hit by this. It is everyone, everyone is going through this process. So when you're going through a pandemic or you're going through a war, the first thing that you would look at is the physiological or the basic needs. And when you look at the basic need, which is food, shelter, and if they have little saving, they want to save it in case they get infected, they need to save it for the hospital bills. If you actually look at the way we are being structured here, even our healthcare facility, which is not free of cost. So there is a price for everything if you want. And for that, for everything, you need money. And that is where parents were trying to save that. Now, we are not denying to the fact that education is not necessary. But this is not a normal scenario, as in even if for a festival, if you were spending 2,000 till yesterday, today we do not want to spend that. That doesn't mean that we have lost faith in God. Right. So this is the entire scenario that we are going through as a parent. We do believe in education. We believe in the importance of supporting schools also. But schools standing up, schools which are being too adamant on not looking at the other picture, other side of the story, where they're not hearing out to parents, is the problem. You know, when do people go and do dharnas, or when do we actually go and when do we have to go to a court? Why did parents have to go to a court? Why did the schools listen to them? When parents were going to, I'm too sure if you actually go and do a background verification of the steps that parents followed before going to the court, the first steps are certainly to get in touch with the school. And they have been trying and trying and trying when the schools refused to actually listen to them. And that is where they had to go to the court. And the second reason they had to go to a court is because they found no solution. They found that they were exploited in the name of education. Now, how is what I'll share a story with you here.
Yes, please.
You know, when, and we as TPA, we as Telangana Parent Association have never encouraged parents to directly go and register a case with the police or the court. We have always asked them to come forward and give the representation, share their problems. We have tried to find a middle way where we would take the representation to a school. We would send it in writing that these are the number of parents who have represented, and this is their problem. Can you accommodate? And we have always tried to, you know, even speak to parents that no, when we are going to take your plight or we take your plea to the school, and if they agree to a certain discount on the fee, then you have to make sure that you make the entire fee payment. It's not like that you use us to get the discount today and tomorrow you don't make the fee payment, and schools are still going through that problem. So we have been trying to become that communication gateway for them. But why did we arrive on this stage where you needed someone else to communicate? Why did you even need an association or a body from outside? What about the parent association within the school premises itself? Why didn't schools take parent association seriously? Only today, when the entire problem has come, the schools are talking about parent associations or no communication from parents. But did we hear about parents being the stakeholders? Were they so involved in the school? The only communication that would come to parents from school is when they have fee dues, or when the child doesn't attend the school. Why? Why did I not get a call from the school that your child was little low today? Why was he low today? We could see that he was not taking his food properly. Is it something that he's going through? So, you know, this kind of relationship was not built up between the parents and the school. So it is like a family. You know, when we together are fighting, and we are a family and we are fighting together, then each one of us will look at, if we have only one chapati in a plate, and together as a family we have to eat, and we are sympathetic with each other, we will share that chapati. But if we have not been a family, and if you are eating the same food in a restaurant and you have one chapati, you would fill your own stomach. Will you actually make parts and try to give it to everyone who is around you? So that family feeling, or that connect between the school and the parents, missed. And somewhere there, parents had their own set of problems, schools had their own set of problems, and they were finding their own ways to fight. And that's where associations have had to come forward. And I always say this, that why an external association had to come. If the school had their own association within their own, or in their schools, and if the parents were a part of the decision making, you know, if they decided to go online, if parents were a part of that decision making, obviously that transition would have been smooth. So this is what I feel has lacked in the school systems, that parents were not involved in the schools before the pandemic. Only after the pandemic, this has happened. The second important thing that, you know, this is, you know, connecting the fee of the fee payment directly to non-payment of salaries of teachers was also not well taken from the parent perspective. You know, did we pay teachers so well the way we charged the parent? Parents never got into this formula before, but we as a school have now given them those ideas that you don't pay, so we don't pay. So I feel that somewhere the entire crux or the objective of a school being there to impart education or to influence life changing to a business model where the parents were treated as customers, where you just show them the part which you want to show and not the reality, has actually brought it to this level where parents are not being heard. And some parents are unreasonable, but when there is a group, the group does try to influence some of those parents, and together they can come to a reasonable demand which can be met. They have gone
Okay.
to courts only because they were not heard from the schools.
Right, right. No, I understand. And certainly there are two parts
Now,
of story. There is a parent's part of
the
story.
second point of the online teaching that you
Mhm,
told me. Now, the
mhm,
beautiful part was about COVID was we have different kinds of schools in India. We have
right.
KVs, we have government schools, we've got budget schools, we've got private schools. But when the
Mhm,
lockdown happened, the entire school system have come down to only one important objective, that is pedagogy, that is
mhm,
education or imparting education. Now the infrastructure was not necessary, or those things which demarcated us were
mhm,
gone, and the only
mhm,
thing which was left was pedagogy, imparting education. Now
mhm,
somewhere here with private schools, yes, teachers did have the professional development in place, and they were very aware of how to quickly transit into the online system. And
mhm,
somewhere those parents from high end schools were
mhm,
also they have a maybe a per annum income of 12 lakh to 15 lakh, and they were able to invest on the technology. Now here the infrastructure have shifted from a brick mortar to an technology based infrastructure, which was a laptop and the
mhm,
gadgets which had to be provided, which
mhm,
amounts to be a lakh or 2 lakh rupees for a child, which
mhm,
the higher end schools could do it because the parents were ready to invest there.
mhm,
But what about
mhm,
budget schools here? When you talked
mhm,
about budget school being given, now here
mhm,
teachers lacked the professional development. Schools did suddenly went into a knee-jerk reaction, and
mhm,
they did try to bring the teachers online. Now
mhm,
again, the teachers were not very well equipped to using technology. At the
mhm,
same time, the parents were not financially prepared to fund the technology,
mhm,
the support needed from their end. So
mhm,
the children were going to small screens which are there at the home on
mhm,
mobile phones, and
mhm,
obviously they had a very detrimental effect when it goes long on a longer run. So
mhm,
right planning of the pedagogy and
mhm,
things more, it's not just about funds, it's not always about money that government can give and get away, but it is
mhm.
also about when you have bodies which are doing research on the health of children, they also have to
Mhm.
come up with proper recommendations on the way these online classes should be conducted.
Right, right. And in fact, since we are involved with schools, and we know even there was much push from our side, not push meaning we're trying to encourage that, the world is changing, the requirement is changing, and digitalization has to be the reality of the day. Certainly, schools also part of the same society. There was an inertia, but I see it has pushed them to be digital, adopt digital online. And online education also is one way of imparting education. It's not the only way of imparting the education. So this happens a way of communication, but there are many other ways of making sure that the learning exercise continues. Anyways, so the second part of the question before I move to Bhavin, and here I will be faster also a little bit. Uh, while we are talking about the school education system, parents' right, child right, and certainly the lockdown came as much of a shocker. I mean, certainly there was things building up there, but then it was decided you got to know tomorrow the schools are not going to open. This is how it happened, and the things had to come like a knee-jerk reaction in the sense that you were not ready, that everyone knows, but you are trying to put something to make things work. This is one part, and as long as this story is about the private schools, often I have kind of questioned myself that do only parents in private schools have right? What about the right of the parents and the kid in the government schools? And most of these government schools, we know that they are not operational. At the same time, there is no kind of education happening. There is happening, I am aware of it, but very minuscule, right? So not even little bit of, not even the knee-jerk reaction is there to be ready and provide something. And in that sense, there is a huge learning loss. And in fact, I really feel very concerned about when we got to know about this labor migration, right? And with those labor, when the family was moving, the kids also moved. And those kids who were, let's say, either enrolled in a budget private schools or in a government school, so let's say in Delhi, all these labor colonies, these parents were living with the kids, and now all of them have gone to their villages. These kids have gone completely out of the system, right? So how do we solve this part of the puzzle? And at least here we find some empowered parents who are raising the voice. And I'm sure people will figure it out and slowly things will get better. But what happens about the right of the parents and the kids in the government school? What can be done to represent their voice?
Yeah, so this is a huge gap in our country where I have always seen that everything, unfortunately, the government hospitals or the government schools are never meant to cater in the way they are supposed to. And that is where the private sector have become very powerful in ways that they are able to, that's the only way to get the quality in everything that we say. Now, your question about how to reach out to parents who do not have the internet or the technological support, I understand that here turning the parent into an educator in the house is a way forward where you can give them instructional manuals. As in, when I bought a television in the house or a washing machine in the house, I did not need to be a mechanical engineer to be able to use it. I had an instructional manual and I used it to be able to use the washing machine in the right way. Education that's the way I think, though it's a little risky in certain aspects, but that seems to be the only way. Send manuals to parents to conduct the teaching in the houses, and also provide educational videos through TV, relaying through certain TV channels, or and certain additional videos which can add there. That seems to be the only way. And
Okay.
I'm sure that this pandemic is going to help us unite, because that's every solution is something that is coming, which is asking us to unite together.
Right. We are also hopeful, and all the crisis come with some opportunity, and
Yeah.
this is where actually we should take it as an opportunity. In fact, I and within our network is schools, we have started talking about how do we reinvent ourselves, right? This has to be taken as an opportunity, not only just a problem or a crisis. So you have to reinvent, and there is a huge need and scope for innovation in education. The kind of we all frankly accept that the kind of education today either we are imparting or receiving is not really the kind of education desirable. Though there are various, the education system entirely is a very messy thing in
Amit,
India.
defining innovation properly is also very important here. What do you mean when you say innovation? Do you mean a high-end infrastructure? Do you mean technology-driven?
No.
What do you mean
No.
by innovation? So defining innovation is also very important when we talk about education.
Well, let me shift this question instead of me to Bhavin. Bhavin, so you have been quite patiently listening this discussion, and you are the one fortunate enough who are interacting with the school and the parents and the management and the government, and thinking all at the same time maintaining your neutral position with the magazine and all. How do you see this entire phenomena coming up? And also if you could briefly talk about the solutions.
Very quickly, because this is the question, Amit, I came for this webinar. I was looking at saying we are talking about the parents' struggle in the pandemic. And I want to hit the nucleus of the entire problem. And before I hit the nucleus, I want to state two struggle problem, because this is all about the parents struggle in that. Before we come to that struggle, quick point. 50% of the parents fund education through day-to-day income. Okay, there are 48% who fund their education through their general savings, and there are 30% of whom who fund education through the dedicated saving that they would have kept for education. Now you look
Bhavin,
at,
can you repeat once more? Repeat this thing once more.
59% of the parents fund
Uh-huh.
education on a day-to-day basis. This is the largest segment which comes in your budget, or the lower budget schools which comes in, because they fund the child's education on a day-to-day income. Okay, 48% of the parent community, they fund education through the general savings. Okay, and 30% of the parents, they fund education through the very specific savings. That means, if suppose I am a parent who have saved over a period of time so that my kid can become a doctor or an engineer, this fund is meant for that. And this is equation number one. If you circle what is the common denominator, it is money. Okay, it is fund, it is saving. Come to the second part, which is very important, on the struggle part. Okay, and during my UN procurement days, we were being taught, and I've been always countering when I used to do relief supplies, that every Indian middle class parent is born with struggle. Means when a child is born, you have to write, not only you strive to bribe the ayah to feed family, challenges that comes through each and every phases. The very first struggle that pandemic has brought is the economic struggle. When the lockdown, what are the rules, containment zone, n number of focus that a parent has to give, not only for their family, but obviously for their child. The second biggest struggle that they have to cope with them is their own professional and work struggle. The third that they have to cope up with, obviously, is the safety and the mental struggle that they go through. And over and above, we have kept now the education struggle, because a parent, now as Kausar is mentioning, saying they are also become or taking a role of an educator. Now parent is suddenly who have been thinking, saying my child goes to the best of the school and that's what my school is taking care of. Now suddenly parent has to get involved into everything that school has been doing. So that's also a struggle. Now, if you really see the common denominator of all the struggle part, it's going to be again related with money. So here is what we want to cater to. And that's where Telangana Parent Association really helped us to form the care movement, which NISA says about the Shiksha Bachao, but the care movement is very well crafted for COVID action and relief fund for education. As Shantanu mentioned about where the voucher system or NISA, which is on the direct debit transfers, what we are talking is not only fund, just let me tell you, all your viewers, very important part, we are not talking about this struggle which is during pandemic. Please understand, this struggle is not going to be, the vaccine is going to be invented when the life is going to be normal. Please remember, RBI has already stated the figures of industry, of nation, of GDP in such a way that this effect you are going to see for next 2 to 3 years minimum. It's not that suddenly your income is going to be back at normal, suddenly the demand is going to be springing up and all your woes and problems are going to be solved overnight. It's not going to be there. So every parent is going to go through this endless struggle. So I think so the very first voice, somehow this whole fee war has been misconstrued between a school party and a parent party. God, why is not government being asked for it? Why there is not a single penny that has been talked about giving to the parent community or to the schooling sector itself? We are the highest employer. We are the school and education per se is one of the charter of everything. Every school is paying commercial tax for everything. Every school, may it be budget school or may it be a private school or an elite school, right? There has been always this whole political angle that has been given, saying, okay, parent, you fight in the court for your right. But where is the government's role? Government is fueling this entire thing and not talking about the solution, which is money, and give the vouchers, which could be only exchanged through fees. And that's where when we have constructed this care movement, it's not only relief by way of money, but action. See, while Andhra Pradesh government is distributing laptop or Punjab government is giving some kind of mobile phone, it can't be just for a photo opportunity. Okay. Let's understand that while this is the whole ecosystem that one has to build, and the crux of it, while in NEP also, and after 34 years and the independence year of 74, we haven't reached yet the 6% spending of GDP. And while in the normal scenario, education has been struggling for funds. Now, when with pandemic, where parents' body has come in, I think so through Telangana Parent Association and all the parents who are listening, please understand, if you are not going to raise the voice now and tell your elected representative to fund the entire education during pandemic, which parent is struggling through multiple levels, there is no respite going to come, neither for themselves, neither for the future of the kids. And while I say future of the kids, the royal report in UK already has claimed that UK is going to be back by 65 years. Just be prepared to an advanced country like UK who claims such kind of effect. What is going to happen to our generation? In fact, probably politicians are not at all bothered that what is this going to bring for our next 100 years. So if they are not going to act now, and money, which is the nucleus, which is not going to be supplied or going to be given in the hand of needy, we are going to really see one of the worst times ever for the humankind, and particularly for India and Indian families. So please don't get just carried by one fuel which government adds on, saying, okay, go to the school and school has to do discounting. School can give 1 year discount, 2 year discount. What more you want? The main thing is that government has to supply adequate resources along with money, not only to the budget schools, private schools, because they are liable for the future of India, for the future citizens of India. So my humble submission would be this care movement or Shiksha Bachao movement has to go till the top level. We should only talk about money, because as I'm briefing you the data, that while how the funding from a family is going on education and the struggle which is related with funding, the only one solution is to fund, and this only can government anyway is printing money for various packages for various industries, and still finance minister is giving hope, saying there will be more stimulus which will be given. If parents are not going to united, we all as an educators, we have got united, we have spoken, but our voice is less than 1%. Only parents can make this happen, and they have to come united for one single agenda, is to give this care movement, where action is also taken to care about the education, fund is also given to the parents. That's my final submission. Thank you.
Thank you, Bhavin, and thank you for being so frank. And it does sound odd. In fact, even I had not thought of from this perspective, and talking so boldly about it, that it's all about money. Because when I was, I'm also concerned about the learning loss and the pedagogy and curriculum, and whether there is a right mechanism and system at place or not. But something that you talked about that is at the core of all the problem is mainly the money, though we can talk about many part of the problem. And while I'm reflecting right now, I do see that the biggest loss of education is where? In the government schools. But who are most vocal? Because their money is not involved. The money is involved, but it's not going directly from their pocket, and therefore they don't complain. And parents, then they're not complaining about the bad education, no infrastructure, no even knee-jerk reaction. But here they are talking about, but at the same time, I'm not trying to justify
one
things.
more part is whatever we are talking about, technology, innovation and other stuff, they are all boneless. They're all boneless words till the time it's not backed by sufficient investment, or you don't have anything in your pocket. A school owner would love these words of experiential learning that NEP is talking about, artificial intelligence that you want to build in, gadgets you want to come in. It's not going to come from air. Nothing is going to work if you don't have a buck in your pocket. Simple. Maybe school, maybe a minister, or maybe a parent. If you have money, then only things are going to fuel. Otherwise, we are just talking words, empty words.
No, thank you very much. Thank you very much. And that is what I'm saying to mention
Amit,
this.
can I add something here?
Yes, in fact, I'm coming to you only. So though one part of the concern is certainly from the school side, and Bhavin has also very rightly explained. But the second part of it, in my personal view too, I also empathize with the parents, because I see the parents are being cheated by the system, not just by the private schools, right? With the government school too. And on occasions, I have said that parents, they don't realize that they are being cheated to the extent they don't even realize. So what I say, that parents are these days not paying the fee once. They are actually paying fee 4 to 5 times. I'll tell you how. So number one, you have already paid the kind of taxes where your basic assumption is कि health and education तो भाई हमें मिलना चाहिए, and that is why you have already paid in advance for the service. That's number one. Number two, but even after paying that, you are not getting that service. The quality of service happens to be too bad that you are actually frustrated, and you also know that even you complain, the system is not going to change for you, and therefore you are putting your kid to a private school and you are paying for the second time. Then I say the third time happens to be even while you are not so convinced with the quality of education in the school, this school is going to give you a certificate, right? Because you can't get CBSE certificate if you are not enrolled in a CBSE affiliated school. There is no open board. But then the third time you have to pay because you want to further top up quality, which is tuition center. So this is the third time you pay. And the fourth, fifth time that you don't realize, there was something introduced as a cess on education, which is a 5.5% cess, or education cess is charged on your income tax. So that also you pay additionally. And when the Right to Education Act came, and it also had a provision of 25% free seats, for which government was supposed to reimburse. And we know that, it's a long bureaucratic process and schools are not getting money. They actually increased the fee to 75%. So this middle class is actually paying 4 or 5 times. And therefore, I mean, in some sense, I'm happier that finally there is some awakening. People are realizing, and this has to take the discussion to a great in-depth deliberation in terms of issues and understanding system and identifying the cause. And one of the important reason I believe that is choking the education system is this hypocrisy. No, there will be no transparency in the system as we ideally in our utopian world desire, until there is this for-profit schools, as simple as saying. So they are doing, because system does not allow, so what do? Then you have to show something and hide something. That is what you pointed out. So there is a reason the system is designed in a manner that there is this phenomena. Because if only one person is doing, I'll say this guy is a cheat, guy is a loot, guy is a bad guy. But then when it becomes a trend, this is something we have to realize. Yes, Kausharji, back to you.
I'm very glad and happy to see that educators are hearing out to the parents' scenario, and they're also thinking from that perspective, where you are actually thinking why parents are reacting in the way which is being seen outside. Now here, the solution, actually, Bhavin has given us, he has hit the bullseye. The entire thing goes back to the financial help that's the main problem. And if care is the only way that we can keep the quality, or we can keep the schools alive, and education can be there for children only with that support. Now, the important aspect of this being discussed on this on such platform is when parents come to you with a problem, they come to you because they look up to you as a center who can give them advice. If they knew the solution, they would not come to you. So our stand is exactly that we are doing now, is give them solution. instead of asking them to keep quiet or to shoo them away. So you need to come with solutions for parents, because we are experts, the schools are experts. So if they have a problem, where do they go? They will come to the school, and the school has to give them a solution. And the solution which they can look for from their perspective is asking for discounts or asking for non-payment of fees. That is their part of the solution. That's the only bandwidth till which they can think. But you can give them solutions where you make them aware of this care campaign that we have started. And now it should not be about you and me with schools and parents, but it should be about we need to stand up together as a family and ask for this care. We have to support this campaign so that our education, our children, our future is secured. So we have to stop complaining about why parents are asking and why school is asking. We have to think that it is our problem, our children and our school, and we need to together stand up and ask and support the care campaign. And I have a question here which is
Kaushikji, take another minute to explain the care campaign so that all the audience, and this is recording going also on live feed on Facebook and maybe YouTube, so more and more people get aware of it.
Care campaign is actually a solution where we need to ask government to support the parents by funding their fees of the children. Because we understand that, as rightly underlined, it's not just the COVID time, but every time the fee payment has been a difficult part for parents, especially in budget schools. So it has always been that problem. So this is one-time solution for all to fund the education. And obviously, when the money gets roped in or comes to support the parent, they'll be able to pay the fees on time, which will certainly bring about a change in the way the quality of the education will be maintained. So we will be, I'm sure we will be sending a link below this session on Facebook later on how to go about with the process of how to be a part of the campaign and how to support the campaign.
The CARE is an acronym.
Sure.
It's
CARE is an acronym.
We would love to be part. So anything that solves.
So the
CARE is a solution to the problem.
COVID Action and Relief Fund for Education is the acronym which Telangana Parents Association has taken the lead.
Supporting this campaign.
100%. And
we say that the government have to go beyond the rice bags now, and they have to start supporting education by giving some relief in the form of funds to parents.
Yes, 100%. So one thing that pains me personally as an individual is when I see so much of hatred, all stakeholders who need to work together, like parents, schools, teachers, principals, NGOs, government, all need to work together, keeping child in the center. And I really feel bad when I see, all of them are fighting with each other. So, and therefore, whatever solution, and I think CARE idea is a wonderful idea, COVID action and relief in education is a wonderful idea, and you will get, certainly we'll have to do a further more discussion on NISA, but the idea is very promising, and most likely you'll receive support from NISA as well.
It's the solution in this time.
Right, this is the solution, and when people and the system has to realize that there are many shortcomings, and we all have to identify the gaps and constantly evolve and improve upon and get better and better. This is how we can serve the next generation better.
Amit,
otherwise we'll be
answer the question which is asked to me.
Yes, please.
There is a question here which has come, which says that why parents have to fight with school for fees and not with the government to provide free education through the budget DBT. So, to the first part, that why parents have to fight with the schools. See, when we are a family and when parents are the stakeholders of the school, when the child is in pain, he will go to parents. So when parents are in pain, they are going to schools. They have to be heard. And it is now the school, instead of treating it like a fight, please treat it like a problem that they're going to come to you and show them a solution. Bring a solution on the table for them. Show them the direction instead of asking them not to ask questions. We should be glad that they're coming to you with a problem. That shows the strength of you as an educator, that you were able to create that environment of a family. So if you don't want parents to come to you and talk, then we also have a problem if they go to any association or court. We don't want them to go there, right? So we want parents to come to schools, talk, and schools should give them solutions in whatever capacity they can.
In fact, I would rephrase the same thing.
And you know, when everything
schools,
is talked about with from aspects of money and finances, I always fail to understand that schools need to respect parents for trusting them with the most priceless thing that they give to the school, that is their children. When they are trusting them with their children, they are trusting them with the most expensive or priceless thing in their life. So that trust factor need to come back in the education system, and we need to start being more sympathetic towards each other.
well, 100%. I think there could be no doubt. And thank you very much for being so open and engaging. And certainly, I don't think anyone can disagree to the points that you made. The only thing, the rephrasing I would do is not going to school and school to give solution. We together can evolve a solution. So schools may not be the best, they're the most intelligent, best people. So we together can find a solution. And this approach is also wonderful approach. We all are like a family. So if you think from this family perspective, and then you are caring for each other, right? You're caring for each other's pain point, and this is pandemic, and as a crisis, is the best time. Is the trust is the litmus test of that factor, and this trust has to be restored if wherever there has been loss. And thank you very much. I think this has been engaging conversation. At times we have found this parents and parents association too. They are one extreme end of the spectrum, and therefore becomes too difficult to engage them because it's only it goes into accusation mode. But this is the kind of conversation I think we all should have. Bhavin, if you are not into a deep time crunch, I will take one more question.
I'm continuously looking at the clock, but you can have a final question and then.
Okay, yes, this is the final question. So someone has posted in the text box as well that there is a survey revealed that about 35% last year's 2019-20 fee is unpaid because of promotion of students without exams. About 90% of schools have zero fee collection this year, 2020, etc., etc. And mostly these are budget private schools. And in fact, NISA also during the pandemic, while this problem started, did a quick Google survey. So we just simply wanted to understand what is the depth of the problem before we start talking about any Shiksha Bachao campaign or anything. And in our own, this is the data giving only from Delhi, 89 schools participated in this survey, wherein there are 45,682 students enrolled in these schools, and only 25.8, so roughly 26% of parents have paid the fee. And this certainly happens to be mostly the budget private schools. Those are also not the fancier. So yes, there is an element of, going with the trend. So agar mera padosi nahi pay kar raha hai, to why should I? And I also wait for the final thing to happen. Anyways, but ultimately we have to think from a more holistic approach. So now, next 1 to 2 minutes to both of you. Shantanu had to go for another TV show, so he has already left.
So no, very quickly and I want to play a bit of devil's advocate here. See, for the schools, particularly when there are X percentage which has not been receivable, school is there. There is already an engagement with a parent. Let me tell you, see, everyone, even if it's a non-educated parent, but they are all consumers and they know consumer behavior. I have launched brands like Gillette, Mark III, Duracell, Oral. With the consumer behaviors, I studied very well. See, they are not fools, okay? So let me just tell you one interesting data point. school somewhere in the, I mean, no offense with the budget private schools functioning and how they are doing it, but somewhere there is a trust deficit or an image deficit. Okay.
There is,
The
yes.
way the way this entire consumerism is being constructed, the other, a consumer is taking an advantage that, hey, look, as you rightly mentioned, they've been cheated at multiple levels, okay? Maybe by the government, maybe by the authority, or maybe by expert. Now they have become extra cautious, saying if now I'm going to enter into any service which school is going to claim, let them do the act first. I'll see how it is, how credible it is, how well it is, and then I'm going to act into the contract. And here they are giving the onus to the school first, okay? Saying, okay, now you have come up, you now tell me how you are going to conduct the entire service contract with me. Once I'm going through the service, then I'm going to pay you. It's not that completely someone has submerged and they are not going to do it. They are tactfully looking at each and every behavior that school is doing, how the qualitative aspect is there. And now, while a WhatsApp push down video is given or some PPT is given, parent knows that how much it has gone at the back end. You are using half of the stuff which is of a third party, which could be Microsoft Team, Google, or whatever, which you have outsourced. But more or less, there is no more effectivity that they feel that there is some tangible learning outcome that they can be really proud of, correct? So somewhere or the other, I think so school also has to be two steps ahead of this behavior, and they have to be tactfully smarter enough to cater to such kind of consumer. I'm using very commercial language to understand that how the psychology works. Okay. And where you have got problem, I would say the person who is sitting with the highest problem will have the highest deficit, not only of trust, but highest deficit of quality also. That's my assumption. And my parent who have seen good quality work, they voluntarily gone and credited the money. I mean, consider in a simple way, 6 months I am thirsty. If I get a good piece of a protein powder or a good drink, I'm going frontly and I'm going to say, this is the money, give me because I need it. Correct? Why would I say no to any kind of service? So somewhere there is a huge deficit of 90%. I would recommend school to introspect themselves that where they have gone wrong, rather than blaming the parent or the fees collection issue. Because somewhere or the other, 1 2 months I could have understood, but now almost completing 6 months, they shouldn't be in this situation. That's my take.
Wonderful. Kausarji, you wanted to add something.
I totally agree with what Bhavin is saying, and this is what I've been saying from the beginning, that we needed to create an environment where there was a trust factor run, and we need to behave as a family where we are sympathetic towards each other. And yes, the quality of work certainly has an impact in the way the parents are going to take you seriously. Otherwise, they'll try to ignore the entire aspect, and that's what is happening now.
Great. Wonderful. I think with these words only, I should give a very positive closure to this discussion. I think this was a very useful, roughly 45 minutes plus we have spent, or more than that.
More than that.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. So we had spent already 1 hour.
Second 2
1
hours.
hour 40. 1 hour 40 minutes. Anyways, but this has been very engaging conversation. I really enjoyed the initial lighter moments, and which kind of also built our own comfort level to kind of talk without being very biased with one position or the other, to have this kind of engaging conversation. And I think this is required with schools and management and principals and teachers, if we are mature enough, that we all can sit together and talk out our problem, and therefore can we figure out a solution. This is the best way to solve the problem. So while the problem has become huge, I do think there is a simpler solution. Simply, it's our inability to find that simpler solution and sit down and talk it out. We are actually making it bigger and bigger. And therefore, we all have to keep our ego aside, keep the child and child's future and education in the center, and find a solution. And towards that step, I think this initiative of CARE is a wonderful idea. Let's all work together, promote this cause of CARE, and we all are together from coming out this mess. this is where I think I should end this webinar. Thank you very, very much. You have been lovely. It was wonderful interacting with all of you. Thank you.